Right, in section 5.2, we are going to analyze the factored form of a polynomial. To write a polynomial function from its zeros is another one of our objectives. And problem number 1, what is the factored form of x to the third plus x squared minus 12x? You always want to take the largest monomial out of all of the terms, and the largest common monomial would be an x. And then left over in parentheses would be x squared, because x squared times x is x to the third, plus x. Once again, x times x is x squared, and then minus 12. And we took out an x from that because it was in the minus 12x. Then we're going to factor the trinomial. So once again, we take our greatest common factor of x outside the parentheses, put our two parentheses in, and factor, and we could get x plus 4 times x minus 3.
Good. So that's factored form, and you have to be able to factor well to do this section.
Yes, and especially know your multiplication tables.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to talk about roots, zeros, and x-intercepts.
All right, new concept we have is roots, zeros, and x-intercepts, and this is going to be for the polynomial p of x. So x minus b is a linear factor of p of x. B is a zero of the polynomial functions y equals p of x. B is a root or a solution of p of x being set equal to 0. And B is an x-intercept of the graph of y equals p of x. Now all of those names, zero, root, solutions, all of those are, as Ms. Schenzer's underlining them, all of them have the same connotation. In reference, what they're doing is talking about the different parts of the polynomial, but B especially in terms of those 5 terms.
Okay, and so we're going to use that concept to look at problem 2. And problem 2 says, what are the zeros of that equation? So again, we're looking at what x value makes that equal to 0. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use the zero product property, and we've talked about that in other sections. I'm going to set x minus 3 equal to 0, and I'm going to get a 0 of x equals 3. I'm going to set x plus 4 equal to 0, and I'm going to get a 0 of negative 4. And I'm going to set x minus 1 equal to 0, and I'm going to get a 0 of x equals 1. Now remember, zeros are also the x-intercepts of the graph, so these are considered to be critical points. We want to make sure that we plot those. So you should find the zeros and plot those first if you're going to graph something. And that's what we just did. So that's step 1. So I'm going to plot x equals 3. That's my x-intercept. I have an x-intercept at negative 4, and I also have an x-intercept at 1. So that's where it's crossing the x-axis. Once you've found your zeros and plotted those, the next thing you want to do is you want to find points between your zeros and plot. Find points between zeros and plot. Because we need to kind of know what's happening in between those zeros. So honestly, I'm going to just create a table of values here. And so I need some numbers between negative 4 and 1. Let's just plot like negative 2, negative 1, 0. I also need some numbers between 1 and 3, so I'm going to plot 2. And so when I start plotting these, if I plug in negative 2, and we're going to put them back into the original equation, with negative 2 you're going to get a value of 30. If I plug negative 1 in, you're going to get 24. With 0, you're going to get 12. And at 2, you're going to get negative 6. So when we start plotting that on our x-axis, because our numbers are, pretty large, I'm going to go up by 4s on my y-axis. So sometimes you might need to change the scale. So just remember this is going up by 4s. And when I start plotting those, I get negative 2, 30. That's going to be off the graph. See, that's 16, 20, 24, 28. So I'm going to be up here. Negative 2, 30 will be somewhere up in here. At negative 1, I had 24. That's a 4 there, sorry. So 16, 18. So I'm going to plot that. At 0, I'm at 12. And at 2, I'm at -6, so it'll be somewhere about right in here. And so at this point, I can start to see what's happening between my zeros for the curve. So we have that. The last thing you want to do is consider end behavior. And so we need to look at what kind of a function we have, end behavior. I'm writing and talking and not writing correctly, end behavior. We have a degree 3. If I multiply this out, I'm going to end up with an x cubed term. So I have degree 3, which is odd. And my leading coefficient, it's going to be really x times x times x. It's going to end up with x cubed as my first term. My leading coefficient a is positive. So if we recall about our end behavior with an odd, I think of I've got a positive slope, because really a linear function is an odd behavior. So it's going to go up over here and it's going to go down over here. And so we have a good idea of what our graph looks like. Okay, so as a quick review, we found our zeros, we plotted those. Those are critical points. You need to plot your zeros. After that, you need to find points between your zeros so that we know what's happening between. And then lastly, consider what is happening with your end behavior. Are you going up, up, down, down, up, down, down, up?
Factor concepts. Let's talk about the factor theorem. The expression x minus a is a factor of the polynomial function if and only if the value a is a zero of the related polynomial function. Problem number 3. What is a cubic polynomial function in standard form with zeros 1, -1, and 4? All right, now remember, if we were to use the factored form, we would be using these zeros as part of each of the factors that we have. So when the 0 is 1, the factor is x minus 1. Remember, when we solve, we're setting each of the factors equal to 0, so we're kind of going backwards here now. If the 0 is a -1, the factor is x plus 1, and if the 0 is 4, the factor is x minus 4. And multiplied together, this equals our p of x. All right, using the FOIL method, we can do x squared minus x, grouping the x minus 1 and x plus 1 together, times x minus 4. And
X squared minus 1, you mean?
Oh,
times x
I'm
minus
sorry,
4.
yeah.
No, you're fine. Okay, keep going.
all right, and then using the FOIL method, we end up with x to the third minus 4x squared minus x plus 4 equals p of x.
And that is our polynomial, cubic polynomial, with those zeros. So so what Ms. Hatfield was doing is she was using the factor theorem to come up with her factors. Okay, so now let's go over a couple new concepts. The first one we want to talk about is multiplicity, and it says if a is a zero of multiplicity n, then x minus a appears as a factor n times. So for an example there, if I have a polynomial function, and if I factored it and it's equal to x plus 3 squared times x minus 1, I'm going to end up with two zeros. If I set x plus 3 equal to 0, I'm going to get x equals -3. And if I set x minus 1 equal to 0, I'm going to get a 0 of x equals 1. And so what the multiplicity is saying is since x plus 3 is a factor twice, we're squaring it, -3 has a multiplicity of 2. Meaning I'm going to count -3 as a 0 twice, multiplicity of 2. And the value x equals 1 just has a multiplicity of 1. We're only counting it once. So when we're graphing, we want to also consider what happens at those zeros. And so it really helps us, like when we talked about graphing and we talked about end behavior, that helps us look at what happens with our graph. We talked about plotting our critical points. So if I had a graph and my graph looks something like this, I have two zeros there. I have this 0 and that 0. Now, when it crosses the graph, the x-axis, I know that this 0 right here has an odd multiplicity. That means I could be counting that 0 1 times, 3 times, 5 times, etc. When it crosses the when it touches the x-axis, and as an example here, it's just touching, this would have an even multiplicity. So maybe that 0 is counted 2 times, 4 times, etc. But at least you know for sure it's even.
What are the zeros of f of x equals x to the third minus 5x squared plus 3x plus 9? What are the multiplicities? How does the end behavior look at these zeros? All right, it is degree 3. 3 is our highest exponent, so we know there has to be 3 zeros. Okay, we're going to look at the graph and find that from there one of the zeros is at a -1, and it's counted odd number of times.
Because it crosses the graph.
Because it crosses the graph, right? And then there's a 0 at x equals 3 because it counts even number of times.
And the reason why it's counted an even number of times is because it touches. Right?
Right.
And so, what can we conclude?
Well, we've got our 3 zeros, correct?
Right, so x equals 3 is going to be counted twice.
Right.
Because it has to be even.
And then x minus x plus 1 equals 0.
So this x
This
equals
equals
negative
negative
1
1
is going to
is
be counted
one
once. So
And
that's
then
our
those are-
multiplicity.
Yep, and that's our 3 zeros then.
And then how does the graph, we talked about how they behave at those zeros, touch or cross. So when it talks about multiplicity, that's, you gotta make sure you tell us how many times, not just that it's even or odd, but how many times. So x equals -1 would be counted once, and x equals 3 is counted twice to come up with our 3 values.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then when it says, you know, this one we could have just put in our graphing calculator, and I just put this in our notes so that we could visually look at it, but I would have just thrown it in my calculator to try to figure out whether it's an odd or even multiplicity and then go from there.
Under new concepts, let's talk about the relative maximum and the relative minimum. The value of a function at an up to down turning point is our relative maximum. Ms. Schenzer's drawing that there.
And here you're going up and then you're going down, so you're gonna have a relative maximum right there.
And then our relative minimum is the value of the function at a down to up turning point. So once again, we're going down, turn, and go up.
And think of it like we've done max and mins for quadratic functions, then this one's just a relative one, because you can see with our end behavior, we're still going up and we're still going down, so we're not gonna find an absolute max or min. And also that value should be the y value at those spots,
Yeah,
because
I
we're
was just gonna
looking
say
at the
that.
high and the low. Okay?
So I think we're going to go to some graphing calculator work.
Okay, this next problem says what are the relative max and minimum of that equation or that function and round to the nearest tenth. So we're going to actually put this in our graphing calculator and we're going to use the max and min features under calc. So I'm going to show you how that works. Okay, so here I'm actually just typing in the function x cubed minus 9x. Now when I graph it, I'm going to see that I am going to have like a max and a min, but I'm going to go back and switch my window so I can see them a little better. So if I go down to my y min, I'm going to put in -15, and my y max I'll put 15. That way I'll be able to see the top of the hill and the bottom of the hill a little bit better. There we go. So now I'm going to go to second calc, which is right above trace, and I'm going to first do my max, that top of the hill on the left. So I need to move my cursor so it's left of the hill. It says left bound, so just get it right above the hill, and then to the right of it. So I'm going to go over the hill, hit enter, and then my guess, hit enter. So I get a value of -1.7, 10.4. Now I'm going to do a minimum. So now I'm going to go to my minimum feature, and then I'm going to go left bound. So get right to the left of the bottom of the hill, right bound, go to the right of it, hit enter, guess, hit enter, and then there's my value, 1.7, -10.4. So that's what I wrote there. I gave the ordered pair. Remember, we're really focusing on the y value. So the actual maximum, the relative maximum at that point is the y value 10.4, and the relative minimum at that point was a value of negative 10.4. Okay, we're going to close here with a word problem. A designer wants to make a rectangular prism box with a maximum volume while keeping the sum of its length, width, and height equal to 12 inches. The length must be 3 times the height. What should the dimensions be? So here I have a picture going on, and I'm going to make my height x, and then the length must be 3 times the height, so this is going to be 3x. And I know that x plus 3x plus my width all have to be 12 inches. So if I solve this for w, I'm going to get w equals 12 minus 4x. So we actually have all of our dimensions labeled here. So this is 12 minus 4x for my w. So volume, if you recall, equals length times width times height. So my length again is 3x, my width is 12 minus 4x, and my height is x. And we want to maximize this. So if I just clean this up a little bit, let's distribute here. I get 36x. Let me just erase that and write it a little bit neater. 36x minus 12x squared, and then we're going to multiply through by x. So we get 36x squared minus 12x cubed. And that would be the function I want to maximize. So what I want you to do, and I'm not going to go through all of this with you, but you're going to go back to your graphing calculator, you're going to graph it, and you're going to find a relative maximum, sorry. There's going to be a top of a hill, and you're going to find that that's at x equals 2. So that means that I will get a relative maximum volume when my height is 2 inches. My length, again, is 3 times that, 3 times 2, which is 6 inches. And then my width would be 12 minus 4 times 2, which is 12 minus 8, or 4 inches. And again, if you multiply 2 times 6 times 4, you would end up with the 48 or cubic inches. That would be the volume. So what should each dimension be? There you go. That was the end of 5.2, polynomials, linear factors, and zeros. And the focus was to analyze the factored form of a polynomial and to write a polynomial function from its zeros.